Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and this is SkyWire. And each and every week, we bring you just extraordinary stories about listening. And as you listen, you go deeper and deeper. So you start off wherever you start, and you just doesn't matter. There's no beginning, there's no end. You just keep on going. And so today, we're really excited because we have another topic that seems so obvious. I don't know why we haven't done it before, but it hasn't come up before. So today's topic is how men and women listen. Do we listen differently? Do we listen the same, but we listen to different things? How do we do that? And we're going to explore that topic through listening. And I just want to let you know who is joining the show today in our panel, and it's fun. We already had a blast. We already had a whole show already, and it was great. So let me welcome everyone. And for all of you that are listening live, welcome. For those of you that are tuning in to the replay, we're so delighted to have you as well. Better late than never. Comment, share. This type of show keeps on going. It's living. It's a living organism. It'll keep on growing. The more you comment, the more you share, the more listening becomes the way of peace everywhere. So let me first introduce Margarita. Hi.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. I
Good.
celebrate spring here in Kingston. It's
Cool.
heated up to -8 degrees.
Perfect. I don't even know. I can't even figure that out in my head, but whatever it is. Woo!
Below freezing, okay?
Good. Whoa. Ooh. And Katrina, hi.
Good morning, everybody. I am excited to be here today because I know that this is a topic that I've personally had a lot of conversations about, so I'm excited to hear what other folks have to say. And very much like Margarita, I'm feeling like spring is definitely on its way and in that spirit, and my allergies are telling me it's so as well, so I apologize. I sound a little stuffy today.
That's all right. We're happy to have you any way you stuff up. And Jamie? Jamie.
Hi there, everyone. Nice to be here again. And well, It's always spring here in this city. It's called the City of Eternal Spring. So I'm just enjoying spring every day here. I'm really interested. I'm looking forward to today's conversation because I really want to know the other side. You know, the female side of this story. So that's what I'm looking forward to hearing, and I hope that people who are watching this will be able to learn something from that too.
That's an interesting statement, the story. It'd be interesting to figure that out, to understand it a little bit better, and maybe come up with a story. I don't know. We'll see. Gail!
Hello, I was looking for my unmute button there. So I'm glad to be here too, and I loved what everybody said, and I especially love what you just said, Marilyn, about maybe there's the masculine story and there's the feminine story, but there's also one story. I think that we're more alike than we are different. So looking forward to it.
Cool. That was a good way to put what I said, which I didn't even realize I was saying that, but that's exactly what I was saying. Elaine?
Well, this topic today is prompting me to think about the men who are the most present men in my life, my husband and my son. And as it turns out, my son is here for a few days. He just left a job in San Francisco, is relocating to Berlin for a new position. So there's this couple-day window where it's going to be me, my husband, and my son. We haven't had that for quite a long time, just the three of us. And so this discussion today is going to bring probably a new level of awareness to my interactions with them. So I'm excited.
That's cool. And I was going to say, if your son is up and he wants to come join the conversation, bring him in. You're welcome. It's nice to have different perspectives. Dave. Hi, Dave. Dave is new, and we're so happy. He's not really new, but he's new. So, hey, Dave.
How you doing? It's good to be here. I saw the show a few weeks ago for the first time. Brought to my attention by Elaine. And yes, it's a pleasure. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be on the screen and on the hangout with all of you.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. And Heidi, I see half of Heidi, but I see a whole Mark. Hi.
Can you see whole me now?
Now I can see all of you now.
Okay. Listening, men and women difference. I always thought it must all be the same. And the more I'm living with Mark and discovering in depth what is going on, the more I am convinced that there are real big differences. And I think we will go to that.
Wow, that's interesting. Thank you for bringing that up. And Mark, what do you think?
Well, I have come to understand what the differences are, at least between us, and I think to some extent we can project that out in a more general way. Of course, there's a good deal of overlap, and with awareness and consciousness, the differences can be ameliorated, perhaps not erased, and maybe we don't want to erase the differences, but they can be... we can live together, you know, not kill each other, stuff like that.
Come on, not only not kill each other. I've never lived as well with anybody as I do with him. But
and I'll say the same.
Yeah, we heard that when we did our Sacred Sex show a couple of weeks ago. So everyone that's listening, we're going to be doing it again, and you can hear more. But Mark, that was a very...
Yeah, we did it again, too.
Yeah, good. I'm glad to hear. Me too. You know, I'm glad to hear your perspective, or you're bringing up this idea of differences, because how we approach differences makes a difference. You know, the energy we put to it, how we define it, how big we make it or how small we make it. So that's an interesting thing for us to include in our conversation. So I appreciate that very much. So I want to welcome, I know that Candy's out in the comment stream, and not sure who else is there at the moment, but please feel free to comment, give us your perspectives. And I want to thank Candy so much for posting those pictures and quotes. So keep on doing that. That's wonderful. So I'm going to ask Jamie to start us off. He had a bubbling question that he was going to start us off with when we were all chatting in the film strip earlier in the green room. So go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, sure. So, I'm just going to start off the conversation with, a question that came up and a few thoughts that have also come up surrounding that question. And then I'll just kind of throw it out there and see what everybody responds to that. I mean, obviously, as a man, I obviously know the masculine side of listening and how I listen. I know how I listen, and I think many of the kind of ways that I listen are very similar to probably other men, I suppose. My question is, how do women listen? Because as I'm not a woman, it's hard for me to say that. I mean, I can only formulate sort of ideas and opinions. So that's the question I'd really like to throw out in this conversation today. And I would just like to accompany that with a few other thoughts to kind of digest. I think it's very important to consider that the way we listen to our intuition or our inner guidance, it can be different between men and women, but then I think there are also similarities, especially when you consider that as a human being, you have within you both masculine and the feminine. We have both of those sides within us. Naturally, by physiology, I have more masculine within me. That's my nature. But I also have a feminine side to me. So I think that when I'm in touch with my intuition and my inner guidance, perhaps sometimes I can relate to it also in a feminine way, just as much as in a masculine way. And I would also just add that in my experience, I don't know if this is true for all women, but in my experience, I find a lot of women seem to get in touch with their intuition much more easily than a lot of men. I don't know if that's a general thing, but just that's from my personal experience. I've noticed that women can tell very, very quickly if you're not telling them the complete story about something. They're very good at that. So I've learned always with women to be very sincere about everything and not to try to deceive or to hide or anything. So because they know, they can tell. And I don't know how that is more so with women than men. Perhaps perhaps it's to do with the way we're brought up in society, the way that we're kind of conditioned by our families and parents and so on, that women perhaps feel more free to get in touch with their emotions, whereas men perhaps traditionally are more kind of like they have to be a bit more tougher in society. They're not supposed to show so much emotion, so they're a bit cut off from that listening to intuition. So those are a few thoughts that have just come up. And I really would like to know this question, how do women listen? And I would love to hear that and compare that to my own experiences.
Okay, so that's a great question. And a lot of things bubbled up for me too. But I'm going to hold on to what I was thinking and what's bubbling up. And I'm going to hold it until we've all had a chance to chat. And I think what's going to be interesting is to hear also from Dave and from Mark, their perspectives of what they envision, and not envision, but what they are listening to and what they've observed as well. So why don't we start with Marguerite? What would you say to Jamie's question?
Well, I think that when I ask a question to a man, let's say in intimate, I have to be mindful that he usually listens to, okay, not what we feel, but what I do. So I have to really connect with him. I have to say, oh, I'm doing this, and it feels good, and then I'm going to do this. And if I start in the reverse order and saying, I'm feeling this, I want you to listen, he doesn't know what it's all about. He can't sort of click in. But if I do it in the reverse order, from my point of view, it's like a lock. And then he is interested and he can actually take in some of the stuff that I'm saying.
Oh, and I have to say this because I think that that's extraordinary. And I think that's exactly what happened to, in my opinion, to a lot of our boys into men, because they weren't asked to do that growing up. It's the same thing. They weren't shown the same direction. They weren't given the same examples growing up. That's why. But they're ready, based on what you just said.
There's also another thing there, and I watched a comic video a few weeks ago where this comic says that, okay, so here is the male brain. It becomes its boxes. There's one box here, and another box there, and another box there, and then they're in each of these boxes. So if you're going to talk to him, you're going to actually access one of the boxes, and then he can talk about that. And then he went over to on the other side of the stage, and then he says, here is the female brain, and it was all these wires connected to a whole big mesh of wires. And so I think that illustrates a little bit. Women have the circle, men has a single thing, multitasking, single tasking. And if I, as a woman, going to talk about, project this and this issue, and then it can be 5 or 9 items in the same sentence, and the man can't take that in my experience.
Okay. Well, we're going to go into that, because where does listening come from? That's the thing to talk about. Where does listening live? So hold that. So that was great. You brought up some great points. So Katrina, you're next.
I'm going to piggyback a little bit on what Margarita said, because before she even started talking, I was thinking something similar. But I would say that women sort of show up to connect or talk with their whole being, meaning like they're connecting with all of their senses, and they want to tell the complete story. So when they're trying to connect with you, they're storytelling. They're saying, okay, this is my experience of what's happening, and the facts are sort of in the middle of that, so you get the full picture, because they like to be able to present something in its fullness. And I think with Men, a lot of times, it's like, okay, well, can you bottom line it? I'd like the bottom line here so that I know how to support you or how to help you. And I think that they aren't necessarily as good at discerning through the details quickly because of that, hey, can I just have the one piece and then I know how to move forward? And it's not because they don't have the capacity to do that, but like you were saying, Marilyn, I just don't think they've had the practice or the support in behaving that way. So to add to that, I would say a lot of that really is still person to person. I know we're talking a lot about male and female today, but I'd like to say that a lot of these things are really dependent on the actual person, because I have a lot of friends that are male and I get along with them very well, and I am able to actually connect with them on those deeper levels and have those kinds of conversations. So I don't really necessarily know if I'm going to be as polarized as if it's male or female versus if it's the person that I'm connecting with, and how I can actually relate and really tell my story to this person and how they can do the same.
Right. Good point. Okay, so we're gonna string all this back together. So that's a really good point. So now Gail, or the very good points, I should say. Gail.
There's so much to say, in response to what everybody said. I know when I married my husband, which was about 18 years ago, he was a lot less self-aware and not as good as like an internal listener, listening to his own intuition or listening to his inner wisdom. And he has really grown and changed, over the years. It's been tremendous. So I think that has to do with just how we're brought up, going back to what we were saying before. I think how we're brought up also relates to how we are different inherently. I think if you think about the feminine energy as being more inward and intuitive, then obviously women are going to be that way more inherently than men. But then so much of it depends on our culture and how we're brought up. Each individual person is different, as Katrina said, and then it has to do with our interactions with each other. I know for my husband, and he's really worked on this, but like if I would come to him and I was upset about something and I'm sharing something with him, right away, he wants to fix it right away. He wants to make me feel better, so he'll want to get to the facts and what can he do to solve the problem, and I think that's kind of what Katrina was saying too. That's where men want to go. And I'll just end by saying I really just wanted to answer Jamie's question directly, like he had asked, how do women listen? So I wanted to answer from my own very personal life experience, and I think I'm probably different than, I'm just different than everybody, because everybody's unique. But myself personally, I've always been and still am a very inward person. I've always had a very clear sense of my intuition, and I didn't trust it at first, and that's really been my own struggle and my journey, and really what all my writing stems from. As you know, I'm a writer and an author, and all of my writing really comes from that deep inner place and really wanting to explore that. I struggled with listening to myself for a really long time. I was one of those people that, as I said, I always heard my intuition. Like it would say, no, don't go there, don't do that, read this book, date that man, whatever it was. And then I always got it, but that nagging voices always come, oh, no, don't believe that, you're ugly, you're this, you're that, that critical voice. And I had both. Some people don't even hear their intuition at all. They don't have a clue. I always heard it. I heard it loud and clear, but I wouldn't trust it. And that was always such a struggle for me, like which is true, which do I believe, like I'm ugly or I'm beautiful inside and out. And it was always like this driving force for me to come to terms with that, to discover who am I really, and it really became my spiritual journey and my spiritual path. And actually my first book that I've written, Dave, I think you may have even bought this book, but it's called Your Heart Knows the Answer, How to Trust Yourself and Make the Choices That Are Right for You. based on trusting your own intuition. And man, I mean, I wrote that book because I needed to learn it for myself. I struggled with it so much, and you know, that was a while ago, and I've made great gains in that. So I hope that answers your question a little bit, Jamie. This is my own personal experience with listening.
So, you know, Gail, it's very interesting because what we're given, you know, how women were more encouraged to listen to their intuition. We were also, we have that vain thing going on. You know, we have the polar opposites of things sometimes going on that we have to work through spiritually. I mean, all of this stuff is by design. I mean, it's all by design. So
and you know that from listening, though.
And you know that from listening. Absolutely. You know everything you know, and you know what you don't know already from listening. It tells you everything. So that was very good. Thank you for sharing all that, Gail. And we'll go into, again, I'm writing notes because I don't want to just do it now, but I think there's so much richness here to talk about, so many places that we could hang our hat and stay there for the whole show, but we'll go back. Elaine.
Well, the conversation today has really brought up thinking about men and women, and the thing that I've heard recently, or maybe has been even brought up on this show before, do you listen to understand or do you listen to respond? And so many of the people here have already mentioned today men listening to be action-oriented, and, you know, if they're loving and helpful, wanting to respond in a helpful way. And so it's occurred to me that the male listening to respond is related to a values thing. As I started thinking about my husband and my son both being here and the different ways that they listen, I really am aware that my husband, his form of listening is related to responding and wanting to take action and really wanting to be helpful. Unfortunately, there are times when I don't feel like he's hearing me, or that I'm even asking him to give me a solution. I want to just vent, you know. I want to let my emotions out. I might want to be understood, and if he's attempting to provide a solution before I'm ready to ask for the solution, then I have to share that kind of feedback. The other thing that comes up for me is there are really generational differences in the capabilities to listen, and I really notice that in my son, who's in his early 30s, and my husband. They share a lot of the same values, but because they've grown up in different generations, I know my son certainly does have much more intuitive awareness active in his listening, and you know, he's grown up in a different time. So those are some of my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, and these are all things that listening helps you be aware of. Listening is an awareness, so you're aware of, yeah, there's going to be gender, culture, all kinds of things. Like we have 2 Brits on here, right? 2 male Brits. We have an American male. But maybe their perception of listening, it's a perception. If it can't be anything, it's a perception. Because once you learn and you listen, your perception changes. We have a perception of culture. We have a perception of gender. But that's not where we want to take our listening to. We want to take it there, and then what do we hear? And then, you know, stretch ourselves to listen a little more and go deeper. So beautiful information coming up. Just fabulous. Thank you. So now, Dave.
And I've unmuted myself.
Were you listening?
Yeah, I was. I mean, that's one of the things that I think is It's one of the most interesting aspects of human communication. It's not so much what people say, but it's what people don't say. And the only way that you can really understand what's not being said is to listen for it. And when you don't hear what you think should be said, you tend to, that gives you the direction that you need to go in. And what Elaine was alluding to there, a lot of people listen to hear things, but the key really is to listen to understand what is being said. And in my work, I deal with groups of 1,500 people at a seminar, and each one of them comes because of a particular issue or challenge or something in their life that it makes them feel that their life isn't quite right. And sometimes they stand up and they speak. Now, I have an agenda. My agenda is the program that I have to complete, but I have to switch that off while that person tells me their issue, because otherwise I won't understand it. I'll just hear it, and in my mind I'm going to be thinking of what I'm going to be saying next. You can only really hear or understand somebody if you're in the moment with them, and by being in the moment with them, you've got to be silent. And as I've said on a number of occasions, the letters in the word listen also spell the word silent. And the only way that you can truly listen to somebody is if you give them space to speak. And if you just let them go so that they speak, and they speak, and they speak, they will tell you everything you need to know without you even asking them a question. And a lot of the time, and I always speak on the majority of people, because I think we are all the same, but as people we are all the same. But we are all the same in a very unique way. We have our own uniqueness, we have our own differences, we have our own challenges, we have our own beliefs, but ultimately we are the same. It's just that we have different makeup from other people. And some things are more important to us. If we think that we're not being listened to, if we think we're not being heard, or if we think we're not being understood, then we start to put the barriers up. And so I think by giving people the understanding that we are there and we are hearing them and we are listening to them, we build a bridge, we build a communication without us actually having to say anything. We become somebody that is always there to hear. But what people don't understand is that you're not hearing them. You are really, truly understanding them. And when you understand somebody, then you build a connection that is very difficult to break. And they become comfortable when speaking to you.
Great. Yeah, that was a wonderful like synopsis of so much about listening. And I will add one piece, that the more comfortable you get with your intuition, i.e. listening, i.e. intuition, and all of it, the more when you listen, you can kind of take the things you hear and kind of check it over here. It's like a fact-finding mission. And then, because when you've stretched that listening container, or that listening path, that when you hear things, you don't have to address them right then. You understand the whole thing, or you understand this big thing. You can kind of check it. It's like fact finding. You know what you were talking about when you're in a seminar. It works, because then you can take the things that you want to take and then use them, because you understand the context.
Absolutely.
Right.
But that works in life. That works in life as well.
Absolutely.
That's a real key ingredient.
Absolutely.
For connecting.
Yes, perfect. That was great.
Marilyn, can I say something?
Uh-huh.
Could I say something? Because when Dave was talking, I just had this like this amazing, almost like a revelation. But it almost seemed, it's like listen, and it's hard to put this into words. I was trying to figure out how am I going to say this. So bear with me. But it's almost like listening is what dissolves our separation. You know, listening is what allows us to be connected. It's like what allows us to be one. You know, people talk about how music is the universal language. That's because we're all, you know, we're listening to it. So it's like listening in and of itself is the actual, like, this isn't the right word. I'll get the word, but it's like the key to unity, or it's the way of oneness.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Can I just say that when somebody feels that they're being listened to, they feel valued. They feel that their opinion is of value. They feel that they've connected with you, but ultimately they feel of value to you because you are taking the time to truly listen to them.
That's right.
Not just talk to me and think of something else that you've got to do next, but by focusing on that person, they feel valued.
Right.
And that really is the key.
Because when you're listening to them, that's all they will. If you're listening to them, that's all they'll feel. So there's a lot we can say here, but hold on. Excuse me. I want to go to Heidi and Mark, but I want to just make one comment also about something Jamie said that kind of ties in with some of what we're saying. Jamie said that we all inherently, you know, have a male and a female, or we're all, you know, maybe the messages we're getting from the universe is this is how a male listens, or this is some of the messages that you hear to be a man. This is some of the messages you get to be a woman. The interesting thing is, beyond that, we're all one. So we're hearing the message of the pure message. I'm not talking about the message that we get as children about, you know, men play with toys and you fix it, and girls play with dolls and you kiss it. I'm saying beyond that. The message from the universe is men have, you know, are this, and women are the universe is saying in my world, in my universe, this is how it is, but beyond that, there is the oneness. So, okay, this is crazy stuff. Heidi and Mark.
Yeah, I think it's a long way to the oneness, and first we start with our lives and how it was set up, and as often I want to bring the historical context. And I don't want to mix what Jamie said, masculine and feminine qualities, which we have and we can adopt even more and learn, but male and female history. We, in the past, women had to listen very closely for their own safety, because if they didn't listen and they got it wrong, they could have a whole trouble. You know, in Arab countries, they just had to go away. They could be sent away from the couple life. In our countries, maybe a little bit more difficult. But we had, for survival, we needed the man. So we needed to develop our listening skills, to read, as Dave said, between the lines, to understand how we need to be safe. And women always complain men don't listen, and it's exactly for the same thing, because men didn't have to listen. Men were safe, you know, they knew that their women stayed there and they couldn't go away. Now times have changed. Now women can go away as men can go away. Women can support themselves. They don't have to you know, listen for safety into their husbands or friends or so on, but they have developed the skills. And now it's men who develop the skills too for listening, because they have to listen too. How do I need to be and to act and react if I want to stay in this relationship? So for me, these are skills, and as women have learned it, practiced it 6,000 years longer than men, they are a little better in it than men are. But I mean, they're catching up. At least some are doing that. So I think there is a difference between men and women, a really clear difference. So.
Okay, good. Mark.
Oh, my goodness. You know, I've been waiting for what has not been said.
That's perfect. That's why you're here.
Exactly, and I want to underline what a huge fact. I'll put it this way: we are learning so much about the chemicals in our brains and what a difference they can make, and what a huge difference testosterone makes in a man's brain, and therefore in his emotions and in his behaviors. There's I don't know if you know the concept of trans men, but these are women who want to be men, and they take massive doses of testosterone to change their emotional life, to change their physical appearance, really. And they say that the first thing that happens is their tears dry up. They don't have that traditional feminine ability to just burst into tears, which men very seldom do. And some of that's learned, but some of it is also physiology, just chemistry. And this shapes our emotional life. This is where we're coming from. This is our ground zero, you know. When I was 6 years old, I could blubber as loudly as anybody. But by the time I was 12, I did not. And that was testosterone, you know. And of course, that was reinforced. That's the way men are supposed to be. Well done, son. You just stuck in there and did it. So it's both these things. It's both the nature and the nurture, both working. And for the last 50 years, we have been on the lopsided view of thinking that men, if you just, stick it with it and insist and so forth, they're going to start behaving like women. That's been a kind of subtext that I feel rather strongly about. Somehow, my man will change. Well, yes, he can change, but he's not going to become a woman. He can remain who he is with his reality, and he can learn to express that in a civilized, gentle, and even deep kind of way. But he's not going to become a woman. Although about 15 to 20% of us tend to be more feminine.
And you can learn to listen too.
What? Okay. All right. On that note, I think I'll stop for a while.
No, that was good. And, it's interesting because what got me on my path of listening was my husband. Because he listened to me when I came back from a workshop. And I said, I'm doing this thing on communication skills. And people were crying. And I was telling him what was happening. And he said, Marilyn, you're listening to them. And they're getting to express themselves. And I said, huh? And he said, yeah, you're doing listening workshops. That's what you're actually doing. And I was like dumbfounded. So he's the one that actually listened to bring me to where I was supposed to be. He got the message. Yeah. I didn't get the message until he said it. So, but this notion of men are not going to be women and women are not going to be men, I don't even want my daughters to be me. I want them to be themselves. So, but at some place we are meeting. At some place we may act it differently. I may act my soul out differently. My actions might look different, but at some place maybe we are one or similar. I don't know. Jamie, you were the first guest.
Do we need that, Marilyn? Do we need to be similar? Do we need to be the same?
No, I don't know. I think if we were, we wouldn't have this conversation.
Good.
Yeah. No, but I mean, are you interested in peace? Are you interested in love?
Yeah, okay, this is clear. But
yeah.
We were not talking about the values.
No, because otherwise we wouldn't be here. Every single person here is sharing. Look, we're how many of us? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're 9 of us here. And I guarantee you if we were 20 of us here, everybody would say something different. And if you heard somebody speak, it would only take you to something different that somebody else hadn't added. Like you said, Mark, I'm going to add something nobody else, and it was ingenious. It was perfect. It was beautiful. The drying up that's amazing. So no, I don't think we have to be. I don't want a cookie cutter of me. Oh my God. No, but I think that we, maybe some values, morals, love,
Sure,
Yeah,
absolutely.
definitely.
And what brought each of us here on some level is the same thing. It may be expressed differently, but we all, it's not the average person it's not the average man that's going to be on this show. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there may be some that aren't Brits as well, but any man that is on this show is here because he's interested in listening.
Maybe now. But I say, not always. I would love to see anybody, everybody and anybody that recognizes something will find their way here. That's what I would say. And before we go on, I want to, Heidi, I see that we have a couple of comments. Is there something you want that we should bring up?
Actually, Marilyn, I don't have Comment Tracker on anymore because it crashed. I had a problem with the bandwidth, so
Okay.
sorry.
Okay, so Lynn Saunders is here. So welcome, Lynn, because I know she had written and she said that she may be able to come and may not. She said, I may act my soul out differently. Fascinating thought. Oh, she's repeating I didn't even know I said that, but I guess I did. Thank you, Lynn, and welcome. It's so nice to have you. Everybody else out there, please feel free to, if you feel like you want to. I know sometimes when the conversations are deeper, people don't always want to comment. They just want to listen. So that's fine, too. Okay, who wants to pick it up from here? Jamie, you started. Yeah.
Well, I just want to say that I'm learning an awful lot listening to everybody with this conversation, and I'm kind of making connections also as the conversation's going on. It seems to me that the kind of picture which is emerging from our conversation is that there's kind of two ways to look at this. You can look at this on a more kind of surface level in terms of, as Mark was saying, physiology, chemistry, and as many of us have said about the kind of, it's almost like we're talking about listening in terms of communication styles. That seems to be very different between men and women. As a lot of people have already said, men tend to kind of listen and communicate in terms of sort of logic, action-based kind of immediate solution, get things done kind of approach. And whereas I get the impression that women seem to listen and communicate in terms of more like sort of feeling, the communication through feeling and so on. And then there's another level which Gail touched on, and I think we've all touched on it a little bit, is about how when the listening is not so much between two people, but more within yourself. When you're listening within yourself, that's when you start to go to that kind of deeper level where you go beyond male and female. Because Gail's description of how do you listen to yourself was pretty much the same as me. I mean, that's how I listen to myself. I've listened to that intuition within myself, and I've always heard that. And just as you described, Gail, I get these intuitions like, yeah, I should do that, or don't do that. And it's exactly the same as you. It's difficult to learn to trust your intuition. You have to trial and error. You have to go trial and error to learn to trust it, because sometimes you're clear what your intuition is telling you, but you don't have the courage to do it because it's uncomfortable. So you have to learn that trust. So it seems like, listening between two people there's a difference between men and women, but listening within yourself perhaps is pretty much the same for men and women. And I would just take that a step further to say that, to me, connects with the idea that I mentioned before, that we have within ourselves the male and the female. And when you go into, in my experience, when I've gone into like deep spiritual experience, I felt equally the masculine and feminine energies. I'll just very quickly tell you a 2-minute story. When I was in the monastery, during one of the ceremonies for Lord Shiva, which is very clearly the masculine energy, Lord Shiva is very clearly a masculine figure, very strong and kind of masculine looking. And during that ceremony, I was so totally immersed in the energy of Lord Shiva that I discovered his feminine side, which is in the Hindu tradition is Parvati. So I was at the same time I was Lord Shiva, and at the same time I was the feminine side of Lord Shiva. And I actually experienced that as my body as well. My body felt like literally half of masculine and half feminine, with kind of breasts and everything. And that was an incredible experience, and it took me beyond the duality of male and female. And I think that's the kind of deeper level that we can connect to when we listen within ourselves. But on the surface, we have to deal with our chemistry and our physiology and the conditioning of society. So it's like somebody made the comment, to quote what you said, Marilyn, it's the soul living its purpose. So your purpose in a woman's body is tied in with the fact that you are in a woman's body, and you've got to deal with all the things that come with that. And equally for men, men are in the soul is in a man's body, and you've got to deal with all that.
Jamie, it's interesting when you're saying that. I'm getting, and I think Marguerite's probably drawing it. I'm getting the impression of a circle. Like we have all this stuff to listen to. We have to, not have to, but listening to ourselves, listening as a man, women listen as a woman. We listen to our soul. These are all like, this is all listening. Listening for, I think we want men to, or I want somebody to do something, right? I love the fact that, men are built the way they are, and so they can do some of the things that they do, and I'm sure so very good points, very good points. And Marguerite, what are you drawing?
So I have a circle here.
Did you really draw a circle?
Yeah, I draw a circle here with ears on.
Did you draw that before or after I said a circle?
Well, I did it a couple of minutes ago, right? And then when you said it, and the male is like this, with ears on like this, on an arrow.
Mm-hmm. So explain it.
Well, when we can do both, then this one goes inside of the circle. And then we can have duality listening, which is much more, I shouldn't say duality listening, but we can listen and adapt to different styles of listening.
That's listening.
Listening for action, listening for emotional content, listening to, okay, is there something I need to do here? Do I need to pay attention, like Heidi said? Am I safe here? And tapping into and being aware of all of these signs.
Yes, it's all listening. Yes. Acceptance is listening. That's good. A circle. That's what I saw. Katrina, yeah, that's. I knew you were right drawing something, but I didn't know it was a circle. So that's good. Katrina.
I think the experience here is really interesting for me as an empath, because a lot of the times I don't see the sex of the person at all. I've just grown up that way in terms of how my experiences of listening. I would absolutely agree with Gail, too, in saying that there was a very long time that I wouldn't listen to myself first. I would get the information. I wouldn't necessarily trust the information, which is even more challenging when you're an empath and getting information from a lot of other people. So to me, I was just a person in a world trying to figure out, there's a lot of stuff and noise coming around. What is me? And so my first focus has always been, how do I separate myself from all this information that I'm getting? So I think from a very early age, I never really saw it between male and female. Now, if you want to talk about the experience that I had in terms of my parents, it's funny because I would watch my parents engage in conversation, and I would see how my mom would try to get my dad to do something, but in my opinion, her approach was like, he's never going to listen to you when you talk to him that way. You're not going to get the answer that you want from him. So I guess I was always just already sort of seeing under the surface the dynamics that were going on, which is, when you're young like that, is sort of hard to all put together. So I think I just always still see it as, who are you showing up as? Maybe today you're a man that's showing up more in your feminine side. Or maybe you're a woman that's doing the opposite. But because we have both, it's really about what do you need to be in this moment, and listen to that. And then try to connect on that level. It's not about necessarily not owning what you're hearing, right? Because obviously you can't push what you want to say onto someone else. They have to be able to receive it and to hear it. But it's really being willing to be honest in that space for yourself. Mm-hmm. And saying, hey, not judging it, just showing up and saying, all right, well, how can I be present with what I'm feeling and what I'm experiencing and what I'm hearing, and act from there.
You were saying all of that, and I had a vision of my father. And one of my first memories, not first memory, but the memory that's popping up now for me, is when I would want something. And I would go to my daddy, and I would say, Daddy, I knew I could do it this way. Daddy, would you buy this for me, or would you go shopping with me? And he would go, and he would buy me everything, right? He would listen to me like that, and I knew that. So I just knew how to do it. Listening can be somewhat manipulative,
mm-hmm.
right? So very interesting talk. And I know I want to give you all time to share who you are and what you do, but I want to give Elaine and Dave a little bit of can you just take another minute or so, Elaine, and just add your next piece. And I know, it's not like we can sit here and go, okay, do step one, step two, this is how you do this. This is not what this particular episode is about. This is about understanding. This is about listening and understanding, as we've been saying, the awareness. So, Elaine.
Yeah, I want to respond to what Heidi was saying earlier about the whole sense of safety thing. And when we're females, when we're in this place of our lives feeling like we have to keep ourselves small or inauthentic to be safe, the way we're listening is different. And when I think about my own journey, both expansion of consciousness and a growing sense of self-acceptance of myself, I now listen differently because I have a greater sense of confidence about my ability to respond, and I'm less concerned whether a person approves of me or not. I mean, especially in my relationship with my husband. I'm far different now than I was 10 years ago. I mean, because my sense of self is so different. So I listen differently, I speak differently, because my sense of safety comes from a different place. I'm not just this body. I'm more of this expansive being. Right. But those thoughts really emerge from what Heidi said and what Mark said, and I appreciate that so much.
Well, that's a good point, because religion has a lot to do with that historical stuff. I mean, I'm Jewish, and it was, I grew up with that difference. I'm just thinking there was that difference. Heidi, what were you going to say?
Yeah, it's the good thing that we can develop, and when we develop, almost everything changes. And this is the really nice thing, that we are not anymore confined in these conditionings in which we as women were a long, long, long time. Mm-hmm. I mean, men too, but in a different way.
Yeah, we were.
Right.
It was a different way. I mean, male society can be very unsafe too.
And
over the years. My goodness, it's so hierarchical. It's such a gradation of status and so forth. And the typical possibilities are fight or flight. And I remember that from the first day I went to school. This is I don't know anything about this. I don't want any part of this. Bah! Run away. But you can't run away from everything. You have to stick in there and do it and somehow survive. And so we too learn how to read between the lines. But they're different lines we're listening to. Yeah.
Like, we can go on and on and on with this, can't we? Dave.
There we go. Yeah. It's been a fascinating conversation. And I think one of the things that stuck out for me was not necessarily what was planned, was when you, Marilyn, said about 20 minutes ago, when you read a poster that somebody commented, you said, I wasn't aware I said that. And it really highlights that we have to listen not only to what's being said to us, but we also have to listen to what we're saying. You know, it's sometimes our messages are not relayed in a way that is accepted in the same way that it was issued. People hear something that sometimes we weren't aware or that we said it. Listening is to me is an active, not a passive, but it's an active skill. And it is a skill. It's not. It's something that you really do have to work at, because it doesn't come easy to sit in silence and let somebody speak to you. And the more that we do it, I think the better the world in general would become. The differences between men and women, apart from physically, are very minor, I think, from the experience I've got. I know that women and men do retain information differently. We compartmentalize things. We put things in little boxes and tuck them away. Men, in general, file things and don't open those files. Women have easy access and a reference system that they can call down multitude streams of information at any one moment and wrong foot a guy without even worried about it. And I think it really is down to the fact that men tend to think only with their brain, and women tend to think with their brain and all of their senses, because they'll tell you how something feels, how something affected them, how they understood something, and a man will just say, this happened, and that was it. You get the all-encompassing 3D ultrasound version of something from a woman, and a man will just give you, as we said earlier, the bottom line, how it affected and what it did. But you get the full colour picture, in full sense around from a woman.
That's a great way to kind of sum up some of what we've been talking about, because we're talking about listening. You can only touch bits and pieces of it, because as you touch that bit, you get another piece. So you can only, we're just opening up the playground. And the thing about what Elaine said about the security, and somebody else said, it's so true, because the more you listen, like hearing what you said about when I read Lynn's comment, we're pieces that work together. So when I say what I said earlier and Gail expands it, that is, I'm safe, because I know that I heard what I heard, but she brought in the next piece. And I'm safe enough and in my listening, in what I've heard through having a listening practice, that not all the time, but some of the time, I can, forgiveness, or yeah, that was great, or just this natural, we want this. This is what we want. This is what peace comes from. Peace comes from sitting around a table like we're doing now and playing up on each other's things and hearing each other and going, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's great. That's what we want. And that we want more people to come in here. Just like you just said, Dave, more people to have this conversation, to have these bits and pieces. So it's been it's been wonderful for I think. I think you've all just shared so much, and I'm so grateful for everyone being here. And I would love for each of you to take just, a minute or so if you can, and just share something about your work that you want everybody to hear, or as everybody can hear as much as possible. So why don't we start with Mark?
Wait, yeah.
Okay. Well, I live here in Italy with Heidi. I've been here for 3 years now, and we have this. It used to be a B&B, but nobody came to B&B, and so now we have a retreat center, a conference center. We cater to groups coming to see us, and we have plenty of room for everybody. And we are busy creating things online that we think people will respond to. I'm learning an awful lot about communication in that regard. And of course, I'm learning an awful lot working closely with Heidi. And I want to simply say that this has become a relationship beyond my wildest dreams, because I could not have projected this kind of relationship from my past relationships. In that sense, it's just another, another level completely. And I'm sticking around.
So I just want to say that's important, because sometimes we tend to we think we're listening to, and we stop, but there's more. He can have listened to that past relationship, as we all could, and go, wow, this is it. This is my destiny. I'm done. Where else am I going to go? But then he heard something else. He heard a hope. He heard a dream. He heard a twinkle. And that's how minute we take our listening. So that was great. And I don't want to do that with everybody, but that was really important. Heidi.
Yeah, and following up to him, we want to give out our experience, of growing up and then creating a relationship beyond our wildest dreams. This is the intent. And then also help people to grow up themselves, with the transformational coaching I'm doing and groups and so on. And we are doing with much passion our hangout shows, and I'm really excited. And slowly people come who want to hear what we want to say. So I'm grateful for that.
So we'll
it's certainly not everybody's taste, because we are going into a different level of, let's say, of awareness, which people need to have to follow us. So
well, maybe we'll do a show about being in couplehood, and couples can look
yeah,
at
All right.
good.
Good.
So Dave.
I'm back in the room again.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, this has been a fantastic chat experience, hang out. So many great points have been raised. It always fascinates me when you see a hangout like this, and you know that the people out there are watching it, and they see people like the other people on the panel here. You couldn't put a monetary value on it. You couldn't get these people in the same room to speak, and this is what makes it such a wonderful resource that you can tune into something like this to get all that information from all of you. And I've been very honoured, and I'm pleased to be here with you today. Thanks for the invite. If anybody wants to find me, that is what all you need to put into Google, any of those terms, and you'll find us all there.
Perfect.
But it's been a pleasure to be here.
Well, you've been lovely,
Thank you.
and you've added so much, and I'd love to have you back. So thank you.
Anytime.
And Elaine, thank you. I'm going to take you up on it. Elaine.
Please do.
I will.
Hi. Once again, most of the people who watch this show know that I host the Holy Shift Show, which is every Tuesday afternoon, 2 p.m. Eastern. Actually, Marilyn Shannon is going to be one of the guests on next week's show, the March 24th. And the topic for next week's show is going to be spring renewal or resistance. And so I hope you'll tune into that to get to know Marilyn a little bit better in another way. And then I also want to mention that on April 1st, April Fool's Day, I'm going to be starting something called the TLC, the Laughter Challenge, which is going to be a series of activities going on through April, leading up to May 3rd, which is World Laughter Day, and I'm going to be doing some World Laughter Day hangouts.
Perfect. Thank you, Elaine. You and I are going to talk after.
Yeah.
Gail?
Thank you. This was a great show. Marilyn, I just wanted to say to you just one other little thought. You had said at one point that that listening is about understanding. And I actually just wanted to leave with this thought that I think that listening goes beyond understanding. And maybe we could talk about that at another time.
Yeah. And I know Dave said it. But
oh, did he?
Yeah, but I agree with him. But it's not the only thing. But yes, let's explore that because that's so hold that, okay?
I will. I definitely will.
Perfect.
So thank you. I am Gail Harris, and I am an author who writes about what I call the spirituality of perfection. And in other words, to quote Mick Jagger, you can't always get what you want, but you get what you need. And you could read what I'm writing about at gailharrisauthor.com. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you, Gail. And Jamie?
Sorry, just trying to get off mute there. Yeah, thanks, Marilyn. Thank you, everyone, for an amazing conversation. I've learned an awful lot from this, and I've made some interesting connections within my own being as well. I'm Jamie. I'm a spiritual life coach. I have a background in multi-faith spiritual traditions and psychology, and I combine those two things together to help people, coach people in discovering and exploring their own unique spiritual path and how to put that into practice in their daily lives, including things like how to deal with relationships, work, and family. And if anyone's interested, I have a very informative free video training, a 3-part video series about how to use your spirituality in your relationships at work and at home. And if you're interested, you can go over to my website and pick that up for free.
Lovely. And Katrina?
This was a fun show just because you get to kind of collect all those little pieces like everyone's been saying, so I'm sure we'll have a lot to think about after the show as well. But as usual, when I talk every week, I like to remind people that you can really get a lot out of just the blog posts that I write every week if you're struggling with some creative blocks or kind of how to listen to yourself and be more mindful. And that's at creativekatrina.com. And I also help people with creativity coaching, kind of really getting them past those blocks so they can heal and move into a more powerful self-expression.
Yes, you do. And Margarita?
Yes, I want to show you the last picture I did for this episode because the female listening and the male listening actually reveals something else. It adds a dimension of truth that's underneath. So we actually need both of those sides in society to actually have both sides to actually grow into our authentic self. And that's what I help mostly women with to do in my coaching and mentoring and online program. And I'm about to launch the new program, Your Healing Journey. And if you are interested, contact me on thecrystallotus.com and we can go from there. There is also a webinar on Saturday called Claim Your Feminine Power, and you can sign up for that also on thecrystallotus.com. So thank you so much, Marilyn, for all what you do.
Well, thank you.
And
so
thank you
much.
for everybody else, too.
Yeah, it was a great show. Thank you, everyone. And just go to MarilynShannon.com. I'm a life and business coach, and I work with a lot of people doing a lot of different things in their life, and listening is a big deal. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye to everyone. Thank you all for listening, watching, commenting, sharing, taking the conversation deeper and deeper. And thank you for coming back next week, because I know you will. So with that, everyone in the panel, mwah, I'll see you all next week. Bye.